I'm talking about a whole new deal.
Do you feel that the important issues have been addressed?
Stay tuned for the twist. This is dramatic, thrilling. Let the party begin!
Hello, everyone. Sorry for the double intro. I am back. Scott Menzel here. Happy Friday, everyone. It's been a busy Friday. As you can see, we launched a brand new show that was not done in the comfort of the home. It was not done in the comfort of the home. It was actually in a studio, which, like, what is a studio after about 2 years of not being in a studio? So Demetri Panos is here as always, joining me for today's episode of Trending in Hollywood.
Greetings and salutations. Yes, we launch our first after show today. Very exciting. Did they pay for the advertising on our show? Is that how that works?
No.
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 Okay.
This is something that we should be doing anyhow. I mean, honestly,
it's called cross
promotion.
promotion.
Everyone should be promoting the next show. So, like,
agreed. Essentially,
on Thursdays, whatever happens, should be promoting the morning show, and then we should be promoting Pop Council and yada yada yada. Yeah, so, we're getting back to the groove, and we'll figure stuff out, and we'll have to come up with a strategic marketing plan in the future.
Groovy, man. Groovy. So
there's so much, as always, to talk about. I don't know where we should start. I mean, there's too much.
Yeah, and again, didn't think it was going to be a really busy week, but I say, why don't we talk about remakes, and silly remakes?
And I will always love you. Yeah.
I love you back, buddy.
There she is.
Back. There she is.
She's there. She's like, yep. You gonna remake me? Yes, we are.
Yeah. Of all the dumb ideas of remakes, this one for me ranks almost near the top. Why? Because we just I actually just had a conversation about The Bodyguard with my neighbors. It's been on cable a lot lately, and I've recently watched it from beginning to end. I had not seen The Bodyguard in its entirety for many years. And you watch it and you go, especially with many years like in between, you go, yeah, you get it. You get why that movie was a hit when it was made. It's definitely a movie of its time, and the kind of movie that they don't and or can't make anymore. Why can't they make it anymore? Well, here's why. We don't have any box office stars like Kevin Costner today. Moviedom today is more on concept than it is star quality. And Kevin Costner at that time was a huge box office movie star. He had it all. This guy was $100 million man. So then you throw in Whitney Houston. Now, we don't consume music the way we did back then. You're not buying CDs or cassette tapes. It's all streaming, and most people are just getting singles, right?
Yep.
So who, and at that time too, Whitney Houston was huge. She was in the music world. Every time she sang a note, it was discussed, it was bought, she was huge. And then you put Costner and Houston in this movie, and it was, what can you say? It couldn't miss unless it really sucked, which seriously, and even if it sucked, like I'm looking this up right now, even if it sucked, it would have done pretty good. And it didn't suck. Like, is it great? No, but it was great commercial. It was a great commercial movie that, number one, it showcased Whitney Houston's talents as an actress. Not unlike A Star Is Born showcasing Lady Gaga. Like, that's the closest comparison that I have.
It's true.
The question I pose to you, Scott, is who do you cast today? Now, I threw out Lady Gaga, right? But you need someone, Taylor Swift, but I don't think she's old enough. You know, I mean, I don't know. Who do you pick?
And then you can't do that. I mean, like, listen, you can't, first of all, you would be crucified if you take someone as iconic as Whitney Houston and recast her as Lady Gaga or Taylor Swift. And we all know why. This is not be happening. Unless they do a gender swap or a role reversal.
Well, that's what I mean. You would have to do a role reversal. So who do you get? We were talking, okay, so one of the first names that
Kelvin Harrison Jr., if you're going to do the role reversal. I mean,
maybe a little bit younger.
Name, but still.
But I'm thinking, okay, but you got to think, how are they going to do this movie and grab that audience, okay? So the first name that came up, and it makes sense, was Denzel Washington. Huge star, but he might be a little bit too old. Like, I mean, he's a little bit, like Costner was in his, I'm going to say, 30s. He was in his 30s. The movie came out in 1992. Let's get this. So the movie came out in 1992. It was written by Lawrence Kasdan and directed by Mick Jackson. So Kevin Costner, Whitney Houston, who do you get to play those roles they were very iconic at that time? So Beyonce is actually not a bad suggestion.
Andrea Day is another good suggestion.
Who is Andrea Day?
The girl who was in The United States versus Billie Holiday.
Okay. But is she okay? Again,
Jennifer Hudson.
Jennifer Hudson. Isn't she around Whitney Houston would have been? Jennifer Hudson could probably do it. But again, Jennifer Hudson was nowhere near. No. Like, as good as Jennifer Hudson is. I mean no disrespect here. But again, when in 1990, when this movie is coming together, they package this because these two people were top of the pops in their field. I mean, you couldn't beat Kevin Costner. He was one of those. Seriously, when you look at what he was putting out, and there were very few. There was Costner. There was Harrison Ford. I mean, geez, Tom Cruise is still doing it. But it's when movie stars really mattered. And Costner really mattered. People went to see him in almost anything. And Whitney Houston, people were buying her albums like crazy. So you had two people at the very top, and they were at their A game. At the time, a lot of people were curious about how Whitney Houston was going to stand toe-to-toe with Costner. And you know what? Surprisingly, the chemistry works. I mean, it really works. So, I just have no idea how you even go about casting this movie and how you go about rewriting it. I mean, it's all about a bodyguard who has to protect a pop singer who has a stalker, and they fall in love. And it's about that conflict of interest, and there's all that. And she's also a diva.
Well,
too. Like, I mean, Whitney Houston's character
storyline is also very problematic nowadays. I mean, like, everyone has problems with everything, but, like, could you imagine, like, I could just see this, like, happening now. Everyone be like, whoa, hold on a second here. Yeah, I mean, you would have to do it as a role reversal just for that reason alone. because
What? Because she's a
storyline-
diva?
Yeah, no, not for the diva. Because you
For what?
wouldn't have that messaging of like worrying about a stalker and having a man come in to protect. It's sort of like something of the past. Like you would not see that today. So it has to be. Anyone you look at this, I feel like it has to be a role reversal.
A white man, no less.
Oh yeah.
But it's Kevin again. Hollywood wasn't thinking this way.
When you say risky, you think Kevin Costner. You think
Yes.
Kevin Costner.
I'm actually thinking risque.
Yeah.
No, but Scott, what I don't get is like nobody's thinking about this in the 90s. They're just thinking of going to be entertained by a movie, and all they wanted to see was Costner and Houston get together and see how it all ends out. And then, of course, I Will Always Love You. I mean, that song. Again, we're talking about a different time of moviedom here, because you had movies that perpetuated soundtracks and vice versa. You had movies that made soundtracks platinum.
Yes.
As The Bodyguard was, because Whitney Houston was in the soundtrack. She was featured in the soundtrack, if not almost every song outside of score. And that soundtrack became a huge seller. That does not happen today. People don't buy soundtracks for movies, even though they have source material or pop songs or things like that. It's not. Again, it was in a different time, a different place, and it just, I don't know how the hell they're going to pull it off. I just don't. I think it's a senseless remake. Totally.
There's no question about that. I'm not going to deny that for a second. There's no reason for this to happen.
Yeah.
So, I don't know. And then, what was the other one?
Flight of the Navigator. Now, of the two movies, I think Flight of the Navigator is probably the best source material to try to remake. Why? I'm always of the assertion that when you're making a remake, go pick a movie that wasn't quite a hit. The Bodyguard was iconic for its time, and people know it, they recognize it today. Flight of the Navigator, maybe not. And it's ripe for a remake because I think the story is cute, it's fun. It was, believe it or not, it was directed by Randall Kleiser. Do you know who he is, Scott? Do you know what he was famous for directing?
Honestly, I do not.
Have you ever heard of a movie called Grease?
Oh my God!
He directed Grease. So
was he like a one-hit wonder? Because I feel like I have never heard his name.
Kleiser did a bunch of things, and he did Flight of the Navigator. I mean, I have him up here. Let's go take a look at his filmography. He did The Blue Lagoon, which with the model there. What's her name? Brooke Shields. Brooke Shields. You don't remember The Blue Lagoon? Oh my God. He did White Fang. He did. Yeah. Well, he wasn't a one-hit wonder, but his biggest movies were Grease. The Blue Lagoon got notoriety because Brooke Shields' character was skinny dipping in the water, and her stand-in had her period. No joke.
That'll also go over well. They should remake that one next.
The Blue Lagoon. Well, yeah. They tried. It was called Blue Lagoon 2. But Flight of the Navigator is not a bad movie. It's a cute film. You probably didn't know that it also starred Paul Rubens, Veronica Cartwright, Sarah Jessica Parker. So it had a cast back then, but again, I don't think it's a widely known and accepted movie, and it's perfect to remake. Dad's director, and the woman
Bryce Dallas Howard.
Bryce Dallas Howard is directing, and from what I understand, what I read of the articles, they're they're swapping out, instead of a little boy, it's going to be it's going to be a girl. So I'm actually fine with Flight of the Navigator.
But here's the problem. Here's my take on this. Okay, so obviously, as you can tell from that description that Demetri gave, I'm not too up to date on my Flight of the Navigator. I would not do well in a quiz about Flight of the Navigator. And I also feel like it's one of those cult movies that, as much as people, like, when they hear the name, they're kind of like, oh yeah, I heard that movie. I don't really know how many people have actually seen it. And if you're doing the again, going to the gender swap type thing, you can take the idea of it, because so many movies take ideas from other movies and they can call it something different. I don't know what this obsession is with remaking or rebooting or calling something just because they feel like it's an easier sell. I don't really know how much that really means anything when it's something that's, you know, this kind of like wildly unfamiliar. And then when you have The Bodyguard, it's something like where it's so iconic that, like, you already know there's going to be a huge group of people who are going to crap all over it because they hail the first one as a classic. So I just don't understand this concept. Remember when they did Point Break remake?
Oh my God!
Like, why the hell did they call this Point Break? They could have just called this something else.
But again, Scott, to me, you don't remake movies that are so well known. It's no point. You have to dig deeper into a film catalog. That's why I think Flight of the Navigator is ripe for a remake, because it's really not that well known, and now you can do something and give it a fresh coat of paint, so to speak, and it'll look good. It should also be mentioned that Flight of the Navigator is going to go on to Disney Plus. I do not believe it's going to be made for theatrical, which to me is too bad. It'll probably get eyeballs, but I think with a good budget, Bryce Dallas Howard, I think she's a more than capable director to make this story. And it would have been a nice family. It would have been a really nice Disney family movie to market, promote, and get people to go into the theaters. Like I said, I think Flight of the Navigator works. Why you do movies like Psycho? Why you do movies like Point Break or The Bodyguard? I don't understand. In their own right, those movies, whether it's a B-movie classic like a Point Break or The Bodyguard or Psycho, and there's countless of other movies, we talked about Spielberg, and this is a great transition. Speaking of remakes, right? We could talk a little bit about trailers, right? We saw this week.
Oh yeah, West Side Story and Nightmare Alley, both are remakes. Correct.
Both are remakes. And which one is the lesser known? Right? I would say Nightmare Alley.
Sure, for sure.
Both of them. I remember, I think we were on Meet the Movie Press when they announced the news of West Side Story.
Yeah, it was a long time ago. Yeah.
It feels like forever ago. And remember, it's like, why? Like, why? Like, what do you... It's so, again, another movie that's so iconic. But I have to admit, the most recent trailer they just put out, it looks really good. Like, actually, Spielberg does look like he might have put a fresh coat of paint on this movie. And from a visual standpoint, it didn't look like it had the color that Robert Wise and his cinematographer used. And I don't know if we're going to get songs like Officer Kripke in this one, right? But I can't deny that the movie looked really good. Same thing with Nightmare Alley. That trailer was amazing. We're going to have, I think, a really fantastic December for movies. Because both of those come in December, right?
Yeah. I mean, they're also the two... I think the powers that be will not let West Side Story go anywhere. I just hate to say that. I feel this way about almost every musical movie that comes out, one of which we'll talk about in a little bit.
Right.
But Nightmare Alley, I think with Guillermo behind it, I have faith in that one. I really do.
You and me both.
The cast again. One of the things that my wife pointed out about the cast, which I thought was interesting, is that a lot of Guillermo movies in the previously, you had kind of like one or two well-known actors. This is really like a star-studded cast.
It's a great cast.
It's really, really unusual to kind of see that in a Guillermo del Toro movie. You kind of have like one really well-known actor or actress, and then you kind of have like these character actors, right? Who you're like, oh yeah, I know that person. Oh yeah, I know that person. So it's interesting to kind of see like all these big names like front and center here,
right?
And I don't know, just the vibe again. He loves cinema. I mean, that's the thing about Guillermo. You know that he loves movies. And like he'll go see all these movies that come out. All the movies he's going to be in competition with, he's going to see them. And I think that's what makes him so great as a filmmaker, because you can see that in all his work. You can see that everything's a love letter to something else. And yet he still has a ability to make the stuff his own and give his own little touch and his own little magic to it.
Yep. Our Zach, who's online with us, had personal experience with Guillermo del Toro, and he could type. He's not on, so he worked on what was the vampire movie, Zach? Type it up. That Guillermo did, that you did the DVD for at, what was it, Trimark at the time? No. Oh no, this Kronos. Wasn't Kronos his? What was the movie, Zach, that Guillermo did that you had to put all the special features together for? So he actually worked with him. It was Kronos. Hey, all right, I remember. Woo! And I witnessed this. It was one of my earlier Comic-Cons before it became what it is. And we were walking the floor, and who else was walking the floor but Guillermo del Toro? And literally, he was, I want to say he was not, we weren't necessarily close. You just saw him like down the hall. And Guillermo looked up and he saw Zach, and he literally came like running away. He's like, Zachary! And he gave him the biggest bear hug. And I sat there going, oh my God, this is like the awesomest thing. He was so cool and so nice. And you're right, he loves cinema, and that makes it a great... His movies have that beautiful flair, and you can tell that he's having so much fun making it. Personally, I'm saddened that we're never going to see his version of the Haunted Mansion movie.
Yeah, I know.
He was supposed to do it. And yeah, that bums me out, because he has a house here, and one of the wings he made it the Haunted Mansion.
I know. I mean, I've seen those photos inside his houses of how much collectible stuff that he has.
Yeah.
It would make my backdrop look like amateur hour. I mean, he really has so much stuff. I mean, and like elaborate, huge, oh my God, like actual replicas of like creatures and props. I mean, it's crazy.
Right. Yeah. So, but I think it's ripe for the remaking, and now we're going to get this fresh version by literally, we can say, a visual tour de force lover of cinema director. So, and all the actors, I mean, it just looks like that noirish Guillermo atmosphere just oozed from the screen.
Yeah, you got the gothic vibe that he's known for. You have the film noir. You have all this stuff. The costume design looks pretty flawless. I mean, I think that's going to be a really hard thing to accomplish this year, is narrowing down. It's funny because so far, based on what I've seen, I think the categories are kind of wishy-washy, like the main ones, right? Like the actor one and the actress one. Like, Kristen Stewart's getting in there. Like, Will Smith's getting in there. But there's a lot of wiggle room right now.
Right.
And when it comes to the hair and makeup production design, I've been really kind of blown away. I mean, I look at like the Spencer in general for production design and costumes. I'm kind of like, whoa, that has to get nominated. But then I see West Side Story, I see Nightmare Alley,
Dune.
Dune, right? I mean, Eyes of Tammy Faye. I mean,
right.
A lot of these movies that I've seen, even though I don't particularly love a lot of them, there's so many elements of them where I can see like, oh my God, that's possibly. And I think the crafts this year are going to be particularly stacked because there's so much stuff that just looks visually stunning. I mean, we all know Dune's getting into cinematography and all sound design and mixing and all that stuff.
Right.
But you do have Nightmare Alley, and I think that might sneak in there. And then, God, West Side Story might sneak in there. And then who knows what else?
Yeah. I think you're absolutely right. It's going to be one of those years where those are really stacked and people might actually pay attention. Yeah. Because I think people want to see a lot of the movies that you just mentioned. So there's going to be a familiarity, right? Going back quickly to West Side Story, the marketing on it from Universal has been pretty on point. I have to give them credit for this because from the teaser to the first trailer to this one, each one has built up to this 2-minute plus trailer that they just released this week. And each one has intrigued me. And I said, like, I never went, ugh. I always went, okay, I get it. This is visual. Okay, but this last one,
but just so you know, it's not Universal. It's 20th Century Studios.
Oh, I thought it was Universal. So it's Disney.
Yes.
Oh wow.
It's Disney.
Do you think they're gonna get? No. Well, it's 20th Century Studios. I sit corrected. God. Because it's 20th Century Fox, they probably won't do the Disney Plus thing. No,
they can't. Yeah. They're part of that contract. I don't know when that expires.
Right.
But yeah, they won't do the Disney Plus thing.
Yeah.
So. But yeah, I mean, I think
Cruella costumes. Yeah, Cruella DeVille.
Cruella, right. Yeah, that has great costumes. I mean, makeup in that too. Like
absolutely, 100%.
Just terrific.
Hey Scott, you're at least through my headphones, and I don't know if anybody else can hear it, but when you speak, there's like I don't know, some weird vibranium thing going on in my head.
Is it still going on now?
Yes.
Oh, I don't know.
I don't know if it's the feed or what, or maybe it's just me.
Yeah, I don't know. Let me see. Is that better?
No.
No. Okay.
That's okay.
That's all I can do. Oh.
So, what else did we have to talk about? Let's quickly talk a little bit about this Paramount deal. What the hell's going on over here? Because this is kind of big news, I think. The big news being that Jim Giannopoulos, who is head of Paramount Studios, is leaving. And not necessarily of his own accord. And they're bringing in, I believe it's Brian Robbins. Of head of the class, Brian Robbins. Of Tolan Robbins, who they produced a ton of TV shows. I believe Brian Robbins even directed Friday Night Lights. Somebody can double check me on that. And I believe he was also part of Smallville. I believe his company produced Smallville and a lot of television shows. And this guy's coming in. They're giving him the keys to the Cadillac here at Paramount. Now, Jim Giannopoulos, a gregarious Greek, ran Fox Studios for many, many years. And, of course, we know what happened to Fox Studios, and a lot of people got ousted, including Jim Giannopoulos. Many felt that the guy can retire easily. I don't mean this as a joke, but one of the things that Jim Giannopoulos brought to Fox in his tenure is he built an and developed amazing relationships with talent, directors, producers. He had a great relationship with those folks. In fact, our good friend Eric Feig said that he used to go on Jim Giannopoulos' yacht in Greece, where they would, be up dancing and breaking plates and such. And people genuinely loved working for Fox and Jim Giannopoulos. And his lieutenant, a gentleman by the name of Chris Aronson, was his head of distribution, Fox Distribution. Aronson as well had built an amazing reputation, not only with talent, but on the exhibition side of things and making the deals. And Fox had a really well-oiled machine that was well-respected within the exhibition community, okay? Aronson was also known for a lot of charitable events and things like that. So Disney gobbles them up. Those people are gone. Shortly thereafter, a big news comes. Jim Giannopoulos goes over to Paramount. Now, if you remember at that time, Scott, Paramount was like sketchy. They were very hit or miss, right? They could have a really good movie, and they had a ton of not so good movies.
Well, I think that's been the problem with Paramount in general, right? For like a number of years, is that they sort of have been hoping that they find a hit. And I think they got lucky with some things and not so lucky with others, at first when we saw, we remember this. We were at CinemaCon when they debuted the original trailer for Sonic the Hedgehog. And I think at that time they did like these 3 different trailers. They did the full trailer, and then they did one based around Sonic, which we were both kind of like, what the hell is this? And then they did one with Jim Carrey, and we were kind of like, let's just have the Jim Carrey movie.
Yes,
I want that.
I remember that. Yep,
and
I remember that.
Then there was all that backlash that happened online with the way Sonic looked. And then, truth be told, is they redid it, and it was a fun movie. I had a blast with that movie. I can't wait for the sequel. But it was like, that was a potluck, I feel like.
Absolutely.
Dora the Explorer did not do as well as they hoped it would.
Instant Family, a favorite of ours, which should have done better. Nope.
There's so many of them, but they're riding on the coattails of like Quiet Place now. That's become just like Mission Impossible, their bread and butter, right? Like they're like, oh, we got to keep this going. We got to keep this going. Right. And I think this. But Scott,
you also, if please, pardon my interruption, but you're neglecting another very important fact. Paramount lost two major franchise pictures. They lost Marvel. Yes. So no more Iron Man, no more like Captain America, like none of that. Gone. Disney. No more Lucasfilm. So no more Indiana Jones. Gone. All over to Disney. So a lot of those franchises were taken away. The only thing left, they have Mission Impossible, Quiet Place, and to be honest, I think because of what Disney took away or stole, whatever you want to use, that's why we're getting Maverick. What do we have?
It's a reach. Honestly, it's a reach. Right. As much
they have
as
Transformers.
From that, Transformers, yeah, but I think they might have already burned us out on those. I don't know. Bumblebee was actually a good movie. I wouldn't say it was a great movie, but I think it was much better than the last couple of them. But I feel like everyone kind of has fatigue from that. I don't know how well that's going to do, especially now in this climate. People have been much more selective now of what they're going to see in movie theaters. I think the last couple of months have really proven that. Right. I think they're sort of picking like, hey, if this is a really like an event picture, maybe I'm going to go see it, but most other stuff isn't. And Demetri, your favorite part of all this is that, they're going to be spending double in 2021 for streaming content. So now they're going to start shifting over to that.
Well, that's what this move. There was a fantastic read in this past week's Hollywood Reporter. It was written by Kim Masters, and it's a great read, and it really is all about this move is really meant to get a subscription grab for Paramount Plus. Now, another franchise that we've forgotten about, and this is, I think, Paramount's biggest problem, Star Trek. Star Trek. Like, the movies have just vanished. They're doing Discovery, Star Trek Picard, Lower Decks, and I believe this Prodigy animated. So they have 2 animated and 2 live action, right, for Star Trek, but they're on Paramount Plus. So there's no talk anymore of a movie. I mean, there are whispers about maybe Quentin Tarantino, but I don't think that's going to happen.
Oh no,
that's like Paramount has really screwed the pooch on their direction for Star Trek and the movies, especially since those 3 Star Trek movies did rather well at the box office, especially the 2009, the 2 J.J. Abrams ones did very well, and Star Trek Beyond did very well but they just don't know. They just don't know how to. They just don't know what to do with it. It's kind of like Fox and Die Hard. Like Fox had no idea like what to do with Die Hard, and that's why we got that Mother Russia stupid, awful Die Hard movie. And Paramount is kind of the same way. They don't know how to nurture it. In fact, I even think, and I'm not, correct me if I'm wrong, but Paranormal Activity was a Paramount movie that Jason Blum produced, right? And I think they're remaking Paranormal Activity, but I don't know if it's going through Paramount or Universal, to be quite honest, at this point. But
I love this. I love this animation on this.
Oh, isn't that awesome?
Yeah, like it's so of the moment too. It's just really perfect. I don't know. Yeah. Like people probably just like look at that as like, oh, they're making a parody of Mission Impossible, but they don't see her cutting the rope up on top.
Sherry Redstone.
Yeah.
By the way. Bye.
Bye.
And it's like,
see
bye.
You later.
Now the big question also is going to remain, right? Because what I didn't mention is there's like this whole. It's Hollywood, baby. Jim Giannopoulos comes in to Paramount. Now at the time, Paramount had a very respected man by the name of Kyle Davies. Kyle Davies. He ran distribution for Paramount Pictures at the time. Now, I actually know Kyle Davies. He's from Boston, worked for Universal Pictures. I'm sorry, I worked for Universal. He worked for General Cinemas. He used to come into our office and have lunch with our branch manager all the time. Moved out here. He became a kind of mogul. And he ran Paramount's distribution. Again, another guy that was really liked from his employees, and he was liked from the industry. Big respect from the industry and exhibition. So, Jim Giannopoulos comes in. He starts making some changes. Some people got ousted. Jim's bringing in his own team, and then the hammer comes down on poor Kyle Davies, so that Jim Giannopoulos can bring in Chris Aronson, with whom he worked with at 20th Century Fox. Again, it wasn't I mean, I can't believe that it would be because of Kyle Davies' work. You know, it's one of those examples where you had a really well-respected guy, and he lost his job just because of, I mean, for lack of better words, politics. You know, Jim Giannopoulos liked working with Chris Aronson, brings him on over. Sadly, ode to Kyle Davies, he's out. Now Chris Aronson is left without Jim Giannopoulos, and I don't know the kind of relationship that he has with Robbins. So it wouldn't surprise me. It could go one of two ways. Robbins could be leaning on Aronson's expertise in theatrical distribution, which Robbins probably doesn't really have so much, right? Or he could just say, "You're not my guy. I want to bring somebody else in because our focuses are shifting. And I want somebody who's more aligned with me." So between now and either the end of this year, perhaps 2022, we could see more changes happening at Paramount. But this article really does go on to say that the theatrical output is going to more than likely take a hit, and their budgets are going to come down, and they're going to really focus on Paramount Plus. This whole subscription thing is crazy. I don't know.
I think it's, I've been thinking about this a lot because I always listen to your perspective on this. I think it's just because we don't know the insides of it. I think that's what, at the end of the day, I think we're shouting into a void where we don't really know, because neither one, you're so focused on your background on what you know that we have no idea what we don't know about the other side. And obviously there's so much that is speaking to us now where all these major companies are making this shift, right?
Absolutely.
We even had Kevin Feige come out, right? And
Yep.
Kevin Feige, the man who literally controls half this universe. Every single time a Marvel trailer drops, it's like God came down to Earth and he's here giving everyone, food or something. But seriously, he was like, we're ramping up content over on Disney Plus. So there is just a key to this puzzle that we don't see because we don't work behind the scenes.
Well, and the only thing that I can think of, Scott, is this: subscription money is perpetual generation. Like you're getting that monies every month. Every month, it's just guaranteed. Whether people watch you or not,
you're getting it.
If you get a subscriber, you're getting that money. So that's the only thing that I can think about, is that subscription money, just we want to bolster it because it's a streaming revenue.
Yeah,
it literally streams.
My only thing that I don't understand is, this is where I wish we can get somebody like a professional in streaming. Maybe we should look into that. Actually get someone to come on this show who actually works at one of the networks and streaming, or someone who has worked in streaming in the past. But here's what I don't understand. Okay, so I get, for example, if I have my Regal Movie Pass, right? And I haven't been going to the movies as frequently as I used to. So right now, they're probably making a profit off me because at most now I'm probably been paying to see a movie once a month.
Okay.
If I go to the Regal. So they're definitely making a little bit of money off of me. And I know there's a lot of people who also subscribe to those services who never use it, right? There's that's what all these services are about, Postmates and all that stuff, but they all have these in little fees, right? Where they collect a little extra. So Postmates has oh, here's a little tax that we're charging, blah, blah, blah. Or,
I stopped because of that stuff. You're right. But I stopped. Yep.
But the difference is with a streaming service is that the price points have been so low, I feel. Yeah. That you're almost you wonder how can they produce so much content given how low the price is. When you see a $20, $25, you kind of understand okay, that makes sense. But when you have streamer services like Apple, where you're paying $4.99 a month, and then you look at a show like The Morning Show, or one we've been talking about for the last couple of weeks, Foundation, and you look at the production value, and you're kind of huh?
I don't, and that we've talked about that too regarding Netflix movies. How do they go ahead and monetize something? Even for movies like The Old Guard or Six Underground, which was the Michael Bay movie, a lot of the Tomorrow War, you said they had a
$200 million budget on it.
$200 million, right? So the only thing that I can, I guess, add to the conversation is my short tenure at MoviePass. Before it changed, MoviePass was a subscription service, okay? Yep. And you got to look at a subscription service, and I think it's across the board. Think about it as a buffet and or your gym fee. Okay? Seriously, right?
Yeah.
You go to a buffet, there are people who will just pick at the salad. They might get a piece of ravioli. They'll get a small potato or something, maybe some soup, and that's it. And then at a buffet, you also have your overeaters, right? you kind of count that in. You have your overeaters at a buffet. A gym membership, there are some people who will go every day. There are some people who like kind of forget about it. Zach brings up a point. He goes, they bank on people forgetting to maybe cancel the subscription, right? Now, again, there are people who will tune into Netflix or Apple or Amazon Prime almost every day to watch something, a television show, a new movie that they post, or they send an email or something. But there are other people who kind of forget about it, and yet they're still making money off of that. So you're always going to have your overeaters. Like this was the philosophy at MoviePass. You're always going to have those people who go to the movies. They're going to utilize it and try to go as often and in as many days as possible. But we also had those people 1 week, once every other week, who didn't use it as much. And I kind of look at subscription television, I guess, in a similar light, but it's always generated money in a sense too. I'll throw in, you can even do something like the Universal annual pass or the Disney annual pass. They have people paying a monthly fee or people who pay up front. They have that money. At that point, they don't care, like, if you don't go in a month. They don't care. Their turnstiles are always open. And you either choose to pay monthly, like I said, or you pay it all up front. At that point, they don't care. Like, they have your money, and your card is going to be billed monthly for that. And you know, you can go, depending on what kind of a pass you get, you might be able to go every day, but they bank on people not being able to go every day and maybe going once a month. And that's where they're going to make their money. Same thing. And you have to, I guess, maybe think of it. Netflix is the same way. Apple, Disney Plus is the same way. It's a perpetual
Disney Plus.
money.
Disney Plus to me is doing the HBO model, because what they're basically doing is they're banking on a catalog of content that's already produced and is already out there.
Correct.
And then they're like waiting on these huge shows, and they only have a couple of them a month, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so, like Hawkeye's the next big show. There's not really a lot of stuff in between Hawkeye.
No.
What If, I think, is kind of like really for hardcore Marvel people. You don't really hear anyone talking about it all that much. It's there. Nope. It's kind of to satisfy, like, don't cancel. Something's coming. Don't worry. It's coming. Right. Yeah. So, like, they're doing it the HBO route, which I think is the smartest route. And I think Apple's along those same lines, too. Yeah. They just, and I say this with all love to all these companies, is that they just need to find that marketing. I mean, Apple has such great content, and it's quality. It's quality over quantity for Apple. They just need to get the word out. They need to amp up the marketing. They need to push the stuff. They got all these big name talents. They got all this visually stunning stuff, great storylines. I mean, between Morning Show Dickinson and Ted Lasso. Those three, I mean, they're like some of my favorite shows now.
And I've watched a few episodes. I've been fortunate enough to watch a few episodes of Foundation, and I'm not going to give anything away, because of embargo stuff. But I mean, listen, the budget for that show, I mean, it's up there. It's huge. Like it blows my mind, to be quite honest, because the episodes I've watched of Foundation, the show looks better than any of the Marvel TV or even the Mandalorian.
I know.
I mean, like, I look at it, I'm like going, where the hell is this money coming from? And I really do think that sort of a show like Foundation, they're trying to get, The Expanse is ending. We don't have a Battlestar Galactica, and it's that kind of heady science fiction. And I think it's looking to fill that void. But you're right, the money. And when you look at Ted Lasso, they just signed a 3rd season deal that saw everybody in the production side, from talent, got huge pay raises for coming to do a 3rd season. The morning show, look at the talent that's behind that show.
I know.
I mean, you're absolutely right. I mean, Apple has some really great content. I like scrolling through their stuff. Dickinson has good talent too.
Yep.
Behind it, and really good writing. But again, when they get people to perpetually like come on, and they have this money's coming in. So at my Apple TV, wonderful Christmas gift from no, I'm being serious. Wonderful Christmas gift.
I mean, it's the best gift anyone. I'm like if you're listen, I am never going to be like someone who's going to promote a product more than I'm going to promote Apple TV.
Yeah.
Because if you're doing this professionally, or if you're someone who loves just like content and streaming devices, there is no better device than the Apple TV device.
I totally agree. I didn't think I would love it so much. Being that I'm an Apple person too, Apple Music and everything. This isn't an ad for the Apple TV. But what I'm getting at is when I activated it, I got a free year of Apple TV, right? I can't see myself not subscribing to it and paying $6 for it now that I've had it. I just can't see that happening, because that is one that I actually utilize. And what's great about it is I can get into HBO Max. I can get into my Disney Plus. I can get into Netflix and Amazon Prime, all by turning on a little cube. And I'll watch my Apple TV stuff, and then I'll go to HBO Max and look at all my Turner Classic movies that they have, or whatever. I'll watch Cry Macho. So you're 100%, and the quality is right there. The both visual and sound quality is there, and then I can play my Apple Music. I can stream the music like flawlessly right from this box that's this big. It is a fantastic device. I could see some people maybe getting it for Christmas.
Yeah.
Because it really is. I think it's an all-in-one thing. And you're right about Apple. They have great content. And I do think that with good promotion, and so long as the quality is there, they build the fans.
That's what the problem is with a lot of these companies. There's so many of them right now, and there's not good shows. I mean, I know last week we talked about Peacock, and I think Peacock has some. They're not at Apple level yet, but there's a couple things that are on Peacock that I have watched that I have really enjoyed. But again, you don't really hear much about this, and I think I'm not there. We already had this discussion, so we don't need to get into it, that there's way too much content. But you really have to decide as a platform. At the beginning of the year, you kind of sit down and you're like, here's our release day for stuff, okay? So every month we're going to have one thing, and we're going to really push this one thing. And that's where you focus on. And then you kind of fill the cheap stuff, like with Masked Singer, like holy moly, things that like don't cost that much, you fill that in with that. The Kristen Bell show with Dax Shepard, where they play games, like you fill that stuff in. But then you have an anchor product that you put all your dollars behind, and you just push it out, and you make sure that it works. And if it doesn't hit, then you know that it's not that good, and then you don't renew it. Like, I hate to say it, that's how it should be looked at. It's just like a movie at a box office, right? If a movie at a box office bombs horribly, to pull that, that you're not getting a sequel to that movie. So
Right.
this is the same way you should be approaching TV shows. But you can't just produce like so many stuff. You're not network TV is dying. We have this conversation too about there's so much good programming on network TV, but it just gets lost because no one has the channels anymore. It's up against all this stuff that's streaming, and it's just going to keep getting buried.
100% agreed. And you're right about the cancellation. I mean, but listen, if you have a show at Netflix, man, you got to be sweating it out every episode.
Oh, I know.
Even if you're doing well, you know, even if you're doing well, you could get canceled, right? But the other great thing, again, you know my thoughts about streaming and movies, but when it comes to series, like shows, I'm all for it because I've recognized that the content and quality is there, right? Before, it used to just be HBO only, right? You had your networks and then you had your HBO shows. Now you're finding quality on things like Apple TV, like Ted Lasso. Ted Lasso is every bit as good as the Larry Sanders Show or Dream On. I mean, it's the quality is there. Okay, so they've got to. The other thing that's happening in streaming is, being that network is dying and they're canceling shows. If they find a show like Manifest or Lucifer,
playlist. Lucifer, Zoe's playlist. Yep. Mm-hmm.
They like say, you know what? We're gonna give you your last season, and they're only committed to one season. And then you're done, right?
Right. So, and then if it does well, they're like, never mind. That's what they did with Lucifer. Like they literally, they gave them a couple extra seasons.
Yeah. So that to me is great for streaming, because if it's a fan favorite show, let's just say for the sake of argument, that person at that point in time doesn't have Netflix, but they love their Manifest and they want to see how this ends, they will subscribe. 9 out of 10, they probably already have it, but the network is losing a show that has fans who are going to go over to Netflix and they'll be able to binge watch and talk about that show. And for Netflix, it's great. And they have content that already has a built-in audience, which is brilliant when you think about it. It really is. And they keep their fans. I mean, to me, that's like win-win. So that to me is the most genius thing for television that streaming is able to do. They're able to like go, what shows are on the bubble here that we might be able to pick up, and we'll pick it up for cheap, but we'll give them a budget. We'll let them finish out their things, and we're going to get more people watching us. That's a great business model.
It goes back to the business model of, if you're going to put some money behind something, I mean, that's what I think the problem is. Like, you can only have so many crowns, right? Where the production cost on the crown is going to cost as much as a movie. So basically, you have to weigh your options and kind of say, okay, so we have a crown, but now we need something that's cheap to produce, like an Atypical, right? So it's like it's a 4 or 5 person cast show. It's sort of sitcom-y, so we can kind of make that work for very, very cheap, limited sets. We just kind of have like 3 or 4 different settings, and that's what you have to do. And I think the ones, this kind of all started off of the conversation about Paramount, and I think that's something that I don't know anything that's on Paramount besides Star Trek. I mean, I don't know anything about it. And that to me is bad. I mean, I mean, now being into the film universe and in the TV universe, I think they have Yellowstone, which apparently was originally on their Paramount network and then went to the app.
Yeah, and Yellowstone is actually like very good, and yeah, it's like a hit. It's a hit show, but I didn't. Yeah, it went to Paramount Plus.
It went to Paramount Plus, I think, for the last season, or maybe the one that's coming up. But some I know there was a shakeup where they did that. But they really, other than that, like I really couldn't tell you anything else that's on there.
No,
And again, you're thinking like, this is someone who's in the loop, right? And I'm talking about this shit on a regular basis. It's kind of like an average person's gonna be like, "What? This?" Yeah,
yeah. Yeah. So, but the thing is that because it's trending in Hollywood and streaming obviously is important, but let's take it back just for a second to Paramount. All eyes, we should be watching Paramount to see what they're doing. I mean, once they finish releasing Maverick and the next 2 Mission Impossible movies, they got a Transformer movie coming out. Where are they going to go? Like, how is their motion picture? How are they going to look like from a motion picture distribution company?
I think they're going to release 4 to 5 movies a year, and that's it.
You think they're going to go down that much, huh?
Yeah,
you really do, because that's Jesus. That would be crippling to their motion picture industry. To their it wouldn't be great for the industry as a whole. Let's face it. But that would be. I mean, again, if you're focusing on Paramount Plus, but that's a substantial cut because they used to release 8 to 10 movies a year. Again, we talked about not all of them hits, but they had some
that's what Sony's been doing, right? I mean, Sony's been like selecting a few things that they're going to release. Like they're obviously committed to Venom, right? And they already did like a fan screening, and they're not going to they're going to stick to Sony. Again, it's almost like it's all part of some other known universe that they can have something riding off of. Ghostbusters they'll have. I don't, as much as I loved it, I don't know how well it's going to do. Just being honest, I think it's riding very heavily on nostalgia. And I mean, yes, it has enough there to kind of get new fans, but right. I don't know if people are going to adopt it. I just don't know.
Mm-hmm. So, but Sony has some animation. They do comedy.
Well, they've been ditching all their animation.
Well, I think that once we can try to feel safer and get out of this pandemic, I think with Sony, they at least have been kind of releasing stuff. Aren't they picking up Bond?
Are they doing
Sony?
Bond?
I thought that deal was done. Oh, wait. No, that's Amazon.
Yeah, I was going to say.
Amazon, yeah. But, I mean, they've always had... They've had a cachet of movies that they can release. I think once we start getting back to pre-pandemic norms, which we're slowly getting there, yeah, I think a lot of those family films will come back.
Yeah.
But you're right. But they still have. All right. So, what was it? It was Hotel Transylvania.
Yeah.
Is going streaming.
Menzel versus the Machines went to Netflix.
Who's releasing Addams Family?
United Artists. Amazon.
Is that Amazon? But that's going to theaters.
Yes.
Right. Okay. What else do they have? I can't think.
Jumanji. I mean, this is what this is what I foresee. Like I said, I think we're gonna start seeing. My prediction about everything is that Warner Brothers definitely needs to do this. They need to. They have way too many movies to come out week after week, and like half of them are flop. And this is not just in this year. It's been like an ongoing issue for like years, where like half of them do well, half of them bomb horribly. Yep. I mean, you have a Clint Eastwood movie that is opening today that like nobody knows about.
They've forgotten how to, I mean.
But they need to pick.
Forgive me, Warner Brothers, but they've forgotten how to market movies over there. They used to know how to really release a film. Marketing is part of that, releasing a film. And they've kind of, I don't know why, I don't know where it happened, how it happened, but they've kind of forgotten how to do that. They used to do a fantastic job of getting word out that, a movie like a Clint Eastwood movie, who Clint Eastwood has had, I would say, most of his career has been with Warner Brothers, like, period. Like, as far as a director goes. So to not know that a Clint Eastwood movie is coming out, but again, I think that because it's also on HBO Max, I think we really have to look at 2022 because Warner Brothers said that they're going to be fully committal to theater exclusivity, right? I think these movies that are on HBO Max and in theaters at the same time, I don't think they push as hard. I'm sure theaters don't push as hard to market the movies within the theater, and I don't think Warner Brothers pushes as hard as a movie that's not going to be on HBO Max, but everything that they've been releasing this year has opened on HBO Max, and you just don't see that kind of marketing that they would normally do. Even you take a movie like Suicide Squad, which did okay its opening weekend, right? But think about if it wasn't on HBO Max, think about the marketing blitz that, like, they would have been hitting you over the head with it. And they're just not, I think a lot of those movies, Malignant. Wait, who was Malignant? Yeah, that was Warner Brothers.
It was Warner
right?
Brothers, yeah.
Yeah, it's on HBO Max. I had no idea. This is a James Wan horror movie that I had no idea was opening. Like, when does a James Wan horror movie not get any notice? How do I not know that James Wan's Malignant is supposed to be opening up in a theater? Like, so Warner Brothers is in that really weird, they're in that gray zone, and I think until 2022, you have to watch to see what they're going to do. Listen, they just lost Christopher Nolan.
I know.
And his movies, a majority of his movies came through Warner Brothers. And he just said, see you later, guys. You're not committed to this, and you certainly weren't committed to me, regardless of what you think about Tenet. But I understand. I understand. So streaming has affected the industry in ways that I think we're going to be talking about years on down the road. So anyways, let's switch to music.
All right. So we'll end on Dear Evan Hansen this week.
Yeah.
And that is a movie that is coming out on the 24th of this month. Another movie that I feel has not had much marketing at all.
No.
But Demetri got to see an early stub screening.
I did.
And why don't you start on this one, and then I'll chime in.
Sure. Okay. So, Scott, you know that I'm not a Broadway person. Not that I dislike musicals. I just can't afford it. That's the bottom line. But I had no going into Dear Evan Hansen. All I had was the trailers. I had no previous knowledge of what it was going to be about or anything like that. So, for me, this is a musical. As much as they may have tried to hide that fact, but it's a musical. But it's a different kind of musical. It's not the musical where every character is singing and dancing. It's definitely not In the Heights. It's not going to be West Side Story, and it for sure is not The Prom. Right? It is a musical in which the music seems to be coming from the inner voice of the person, and he's just singing. So when you have a character like Evan Hansen, played by Ben Platt, who, correct me if I'm wrong, he play the character on Broadway?
He sure did.
Was it a Broadway show or off Broadway, Scott?
No, it was a Broadway show. It was a huge Broadway show too.
Huge Broadway show.
He won a Tony for the performance, and the show.
He did.
Yes.
And what did the show win?
A bunch of awards, including the best show too that year.
Oh, okay. So I don't know. But yes, it's not your typical musical. It is almost as if the characters, their inner voice is their outer voice. So Evan Hansen could be walking down a school hallway singing, and nobody's noticing him. So I think for some audiences that could be jarring, going, how do they not know this idiot's like singing out loud and he's hitting these falsetto? Like, it was really, it's kind of weird because, look, when you're looking at movies like Greatest Showman,
yes,
right? When, even The Prom, In the Heights, those are typical musicals. Hamilton, which was on streaming. So it takes a different approach to the musical, which is fine. I think it's a really great transitional thing from song back to narrative. I really enjoyed the story from a nebbish kind of way. Things seem to happen naturally. Basically, Evan Hansen is your nebbish. He's a very shy, what would you call him? Socially distanced.
I mean, he has social anxiety.
Social anxiety. I mean, to the max.
To the max.
And he's going into his senior year. He goes through counseling, and he has no idea how he's going to get through the year. And his counselor has given him more or less a what do you call it?
I would say like it's an assignment, like
it's like an assignment. Yeah, it's like a therapy assignment,
therapeutic assignment to kind of like make himself feel better about each day by like writing himself a letter, like almost as a pep talk.
Right, and it starts up, "Dear Evan Hansen, you're going to have an amazing day today. Why?" Yeah. So he writes these things, and then he goes to his first day of school, and it's not all what it's cracked up to be for the poor guy. And he writes what could be interpreted as, "I'm giving up. I'm giving up. This isn't good." And he even gets picked on by the school bully and this Connor Murphy gentleman, who is greatly played by Colton Ryan. And this Connor Murphy steals this note, and then Connor Murphy off screen commits suicide. And we learn that he had some social issues as well, and he was plagued with. So the movie deals with loneliness, social anxiety, suicide, and they find this note. And they find this note that says "Dear Evan Hansen" on it, and they believe that Evan Hansen is really good friends with this Connor, who, according to his family, they didn't know he had any friends, or anybody else didn't know he had any friends at all. So, look, we as the audience know, well, you should come out with the truth, but they play it off in such a way that you understand it's this little fib, right? Starts happening, and the movie is a snowball of events of how now this punk, because he's not a good kid, this Connor, but now he's starting to be immortalized and canonized in a way at the school, because Evan Hansen enhances this lie, and then he becomes a little more popular than he's ever been before, and he starts becoming a little more comfortable in his skin, and the family is happy because he can be remembered as person A and not person B. And so this lie snowballs, and it's all about, when is this going to come crashing down? How is this going to play out? Evan Hansen is just getting some confidence within him. The family is happy, and it makes you, then there's the moral dilemma, that the moral humanistic dilemma. If a lie can help somebody have a much more positive attitude, is it really that bad of a thing? So I really love that aspect of the movie. I like the performances for the most part. Our favorite, Caitlin Dever, is in it. She plays Connor's sister. I thought she was great. Amy Adams is Cynthia Murphy, the mother of Connor. I thought she was amazing. I think that this movie was a movie of reactions to Evan Hansen. Okay, so Ben Platt is Evan Hansen. He would perform a song, which in his head he's singing, but it comes off as like kind of a speech. And he somehow has inspired people, and the camera will go to see the reactions of what Evan Hansen is doing. This movie, I think it's important to know that it was directed by Steven Chbosky, who did Perks of a Wallflower, which has similar themes, right?
A little bit.
A little bit, right? So I think it's a movie of reactions. And when you look at Amy Adams, who's very Pollyanna-ish, she doesn't really, she tries to disassociate her son's just being a bad seed. Then we have Julianne Moore, who is Evan Hansen's mom. Danny Pino is Larry Moore, who plays the dad. I thought this guy was great. He was really good. The family becomes a surrogate family for Evan Hansen, and there's a little bit of romance going. But also one of our favorites, Amanda Stenberg, who plays Alana Beck, who she's the school coordinator. She does all of these school events and charitable events. She really has matured into a fantastic actress. I think the second half suffers a little. I think it drags on too long. The music is done, and like I said, it's presented in such a way that it's jarring at first because we're used to one kind of musical, right? But once you get into the cadence, I think it's very easy. Ben Platt, to me, is a little hit or miss. Since he did the role on Broadway, and I think that this ends up being a problem sometimes. It's problematic, dare I say. When you bring a person from Broadway who doesn't seem to have that much in front of the camera experience, the performance sometimes comes off as he's going for the cheap seats. He's over-articulating everything. So, and sometimes you felt really sympathetic towards his loneliness and his fear and his shyness. But then in other times, he was so awkward that it was like, I've never seen anybody like that before in my life. Like, it was too over the top. His singing was fantastic, but I really think that it was the supporting cast that really keeps your attention off of that. And because they play off of whatever Evan Hansen is singing. All in all, I think the movie's very good. I think it reaches on topics that are very poignant for today. And I think it's a good movie for high schoolers. I think it's a good movie for parents to take their kids to. It's not like it's offensive, but it deals with some heavy topics, and it goes above and beyond being an after-school special. It does it in a way, it does it with a lot of heart, and it does it with song. Music transcends, and it does it very well in that regards. It's not a perfect movie, for sure. It's not a bad movie. It does play, it's like Evan Hansen himself. It's different.
Yeah.
And you can appreciate this movie for it being different, and you can get into it. Ultimately, I ended up, despite its flaws, and it has a few, I still ended up enjoying it for the messaging that it had, because I think it's really important today, and it shouldn't be ignored.
Yeah, that was really good, Demetri.
Thank you.
In terms of my thoughts on it, I'll try to be brief. Going from stage to screen, I feel like is always difficult. It's a difficult task because when you go see a show on Broadway, you know that you have what's there. You have what's there in the moment, and you can kind of see the sets change happen right in front of your eyes, and you're kind of, you know what to expect. When you have a movie, there's basically like different locations and settings, and you're kind of going to different houses and all this stuff. So you're sort of taken out of scenes and putting back into scenes. You're going in and out of scenes. And on the stage, you're just kind of watching a transition in real time.
Oh,
so
really?
Kind of,
wow.
yeah.
Okay.
So you sort of like just kind of see it like, okay, so we're in this house, the house comes down and then like goes black for a second, then another house is here, like you kind of like, what you're like, but what here you're going to the high school, you're going to the house, you're going to Connor's family's house, you're going here, you're going there, you're seeing stuff on social media. Like all that stuff is not there on stage. You're not seeing a video montage of like Instagram followers going up and Twitter followers and all that stuff happen.
Right.
It's just all through the vocal of the song. That's what you're seeing on stage. So this is like you pointed out so perfectly, is that it's a very difficult movie to kind of make based on the fact that a lot of what's going on is technically like him singing in his head to himself, and that the characters in their heads are singing to themselves. So it's not the traditional like big showy number, like here we go, here's the big, final act. It's basically an emotional, they're conveying their emotions through song in each of the songs, and you're not supposed. The other people around them are not supposed to know that this is happening. So it's just it's very delicate. And again, I can understand the criticisms of why certain people will say this movie doesn't work that well, because you have to kind of, to fully appreciate it, I think you have to see it on Broadway to really kind of see how they were able to handle it. And it's not perfect, like you said, but I know people will struggle with it.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that, Scott. But I think with any musical, with any musical, you have to go in with a suspension of disbelief.
Yes.
Even if it's a Greatest Showman, even if it's a West Side Story, The Music Man, any of those, Grease, because people aren't singing and dancing in real life, like it doesn't happen, right? This one is a different. It's the same deal. You have to go in with that suspension of disbelief. You have to know that it's a musical, but just because it's different, give it a shot. Like, you'll eventually get into the cadence of the rhythm. Now, there is one song that plays kind of like that big Broadway scene that you're used to, and that's the one that has Connor Murphy and Evan Hansen. There's a scene where they're drafting these fake emails, and this is where I thought this Colton Ryan really, for me, stole the scene, because I was like, well, they're giving this kid a chance, and he was great. I don't know what the name of the song is. Do you know? They could.
I know the beat you're talking about.
The fake email.
It's also probably one of the only songs that actually has comedic timing to it too.
Correct.
Because all the other songs are very heavy and like deep.
Yes.
It's like Dear Evan Hansen, Mama. Yeah, I know which one you're talking about, but I don't.
Yeah, it's like the fake email song.
Yeah.
But I'm telling you, this Colton Ryan, who up to that point was really an asshole. He's a jerk. But that's his reputation. He's been in rehab. He's been in this. And then you see him in this whimsical kind of Broadway musical type song that he's doing along with Ben Platt. And it worked. It was probably my favorite scene because, again, it took a character who was a jerk, and then it makes the actor play against that type, and you go, oh, this kid's a good actor. And he can song, that was probably my favorite. But I say, you give Evan Hansen, dear movie-going audience, give Evan Hansen a chance. Just because it's different doesn't mean it's necessarily bad. I'm not saying you're going to walk out like going, Evan Hansen, and throw roses at the movie screen or anything like that. But you will walk out and go, okay, I get it. Yeah, that was pretty good. The audience I saw it with gave it applause at the end, and I have no idea whether or not that they were familiar with the Broadway show. But from what I gathered from just being there to a crowded theater, the audience generally accepted it.
It is, and I think what's so different about this is that a lot of musicals have a lot of like upbeatness to them. You usually go into a musical and you're kind of like, you want to feel good. And I think there's a lot of, like you were talking about, there's a lot of heavy themes in this. And I think it shows the flaws in humanity. And I think there's a lot of themes that are explored in this play and also in this movie that I think a lot of people feel uncomfortable with. And one of them is like how all of a sudden this guy Connor, who like everyone kind of like did not like, everyone treated like crap, and he treated everyone like crap, and in return, all of a sudden everyone just started worshiping him. And we see this all the time, and it's a topic that like everyone's always afraid to discuss. But when someone dies or if something bad happens to someone, where all of a sudden out of the woodwork, everyone's like, oh, I knew him. He was such a good kid. He was such a good guy. He was such a good girl. And you see this a lot with celebrities, right? Like when celebrity passing, like all of a sudden everyone's a fan. Everyone knows who this person is. Oh my God, I loved him. Oh, he was so great. Yeah, you don't even know who he was, do you? You just kind of
why didn't you hire him?
Yeah, you're just jumping on the bandwagon now. And I think there's a lot of elements of that in this play, showing the darker side of humanity. But I also think, one of the things that like really bothered me about like the reactions that people have been having in film Twitter universe is that it's a story that deals a lot with someone who's dealing with suicide and depression and mental health and social anxiety. And there's no one way to deal with this. So like people are kind of like trying to be like, oh, this way of this movie showing things is not how it should be dealt with. And it's like some people handle that in this way. And I think the story itself, when you're talking about with the letters and kind of like sharing these stories, you have this moral question to yourself of like, if this lie that I'm sharing is really that bad, why are so many people benefiting from it? And then you see it in the family, and the family's kind of like learning about their kid and having this different perspective instead of thinking that he was this jerk, but they realize that he had all these problems that they sort of take blame for after a while. They start realizing that like maybe we weren't that great at being parents. Maybe we weren't that good at this. Right. And sometimes you have to look at this, and sometimes that comes when you least expect it. In this case, it comes in a series of lies. Right. But there's a lot to digest, and I think if people just go into this and be like, "Oh, it's about a kid with anxiety who's lying," like it's like, no. There's a lot more to digest.
Yeah, and Scott, there's another part. I don't want to. I mean, I have to talk about a certain part. I'm going to try my best not to really spoil it because it came as a bit of a shock to me.
Yeah.
But the character Evan Hansen is clearly an affected kid. Yeah. His social anxieties is off the charts. But he comes across a character that we've seen in the movie who's very self-confident, very good at public speaking, has a leadership type role and is charismatic for getting people together. And these two characters, this character comes up to him and starts talking to him about his affliction, about his anxiety. And he's like, what are you talking about? And finally the character says, what are you on? What are you taking?
Yeah.
And he goes, because I'm on this, this, and this. And the expression on Evan Hansen's face is like, I would have never, I'm on this and this. He's like, but you of all people? She's like, yeah, I suffer from depression and do this. And there was this very nice scene that took place on park swings. Again, I think it's probably one of my favorite parts of the movie because you did have a person and an actor who played it so over the top, and yet the one person that you wouldn't think would have these anxieties, because the way that character is presented in the movie, you go, huh? Wow, okay, interesting. It need be paid attention to. And this movie goes a lot farther. John Hughes tried to incorporate certain things into his movies, right? And when you look at a movie like Breakfast Club, which also dealt with suicide, right? Yeah. Mm-hmm. And a lot of people they try to flush that off. Fast Times at Ridgemont High dealt with abortion. These teen movies were out there. Evan Hansen, though, is just larger scale, and it really brings a lot to light. But I think that if you're a teenager, I think that a teenager could be entertained by the movie, while at the same time come walking away with a little bit of something. Like they walk away with like a good. I don't want to say lesson because it sounds like you're taking your medicine, but I think there are topics that teenagers have been dealing with since the age of time, since high school was invented.
This thing with like younger generations, like where everyone has this story and their story is different, but there's connecting elements to it. Mm-hmm. And the way someone handles like depression, someone else may process it differently, and someone may behave differently, and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. And I think what a lot of people forget is that this is geared towards a younger audience, an audience of kind of now. And if you read the stories and if you read how many people were touched, I mean, even go on the trailer of like how many people were like, oh, this when I saw this on Broadway, how moved I was from this, how it spoke to me. This is something that I think we forget, and this is why it was such an important thing the other day for me to talk. And then it wound up turning into this whole mishmash of like other things. Is that stuff is subjective, and like just because you don't like understand this story or it doesn't resonate with you doesn't mean that it's a bad story or a bad movie or a bad play. It's just that it's not for you and you don't get it. But there's other people who literally like feel moved, and I think that's ultimately the power of like musicals in general. And like people felt connected to The Prom. There were so many stories about, oh, I felt myself in that character. And then this one, it's the same way. People are like, oh, I see myself in Dear Evan Hansen. I see myself in Connor. I see myself in one of his supporting characters. And that's what we forget, because we're just sort of watching everything and we're like looking at everything at a whole instead of just trying to like analyze like what good is coming out of this and does this help someone?
Does it help? Yeah, and I think by the end of the story, yeah, it does have something to say.
Yeah.
Again, the movie is not without its flaws. Okay?
Sure. It's way too long.
It's way too long.
Way too long. And they cut out songs and then they added songs, and yet it's somehow still as long as the Broadway musical. So like this should have been under 2 hours. No question about that.
Yep. But ultimately, I think it's still, first and foremost, for me as a movie fan and as a movie reviewer, in one way, shape, or form, I should be entertained. I should be transported into this and drawn in. And for the most part, I was drawn in. Now, because it takes certain play, and by play I mean theater, play, Broadway, play, beats, there are some things that are supposed to be like a twist that you kind of know what's going to happen, because I don't know, sometimes plays just follow like
it's all because of the limited stuff that you get to see. Like there's just like in scenes, when you're creating a scene in a movie, like you have all this foreshadowing going on behind the scenes there.
Sure.
Where like on a stage, you're literally just stuck there with the actor. One thing, like there's so many moving parts in a movie. That's why I think it's always amazing when they do this.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's really difficult for I don't know if I'm almost going to switch my story on this. I think enough studios have proven that it's easy to, I wouldn't say easy, but it's understandable how you can adapt a Broadway musical into a movie. I think the problem that I'm starting to realize is that people who are not familiar with the source material are really, really struggling to accept the movies. That seems to be the new problem. Or like they're like, this is how this should be, because they're expecting it to follow a narrative or a story like it's a movie, instead of realizing that as a play, it wouldn't have this kind of structure that you're expecting it to have as a movie.
No, I don't disagree, but then what happened to the audience? Because let's specifically talk musicals, right?
Right.
So many of the musicals I'm about to talk about were Broadway, right? So Music Man.
Yeah.
Chicago. I forget if Sound of Music.
Sound of Music was a musical, I think a movie first, and then it went to Broadway.
So, all right.
I mean, Dreamgirls.
Dreamgirls is a great example.
Color Purple. I mean, that was a movie first, then Broadway. I mean, there's so many.
No, but I'm trying to think of musicals that were Oklahoma, South Pacific. These are all Broadway musicals that made it to the big screen, and they were huge at their time. Chicago was huge.
Oh my God, yeah.
When it came out. When it came out theatrically, right? And I have to say that a ton of people probably did not see Chicago Broadway, but it resonated theatrically. But there was a time where musicals ruled at the box office and they were winning Academy Awards left and right. But then we started getting the hybrid movies. We got Moulin Rouge.
Yes.
You know, not based off of a Broadway play, or even was it Romeo and Juliet?
Yeah.
Same director, right?
Yes.
we started getting these hybrids that were doing really well. So the musical kind of changed, and then you had movies like Rent, which nobody saw. Then you had Cats, which nobody saw. In the Heights sadly suffered from, I think, in part because HBO Max, but it was a really good musical. And it's going to be interesting. Hollywood still has an interest in making them. Why? Because when you have a movie like The Greatest Showman, which had legs beyond belief at the box office, seriously.
No, I know.
This is a movie that didn't even open up at number one, and then throughout the weeks it ended up becoming number one, and it brought in a ton of money. That wasn't based off of a Broadway play, right?
Nope.
That was just that was just a
No,
musical.
that was one of those rare times where you literally someone made a Broadway play that should have been on a Broadway stage as a movie.
Right.
I mean, that's the reason why I love that movie so much. It's like literally, I can watch that movie and I can literally see that being made into a play because it was just it was almost made just like a play. Yeah. Everything like kind of had its own like little set, right? It was like there was like sets in every single thing. Right. There wasn't like a lot of different backdrops. It's like everything kind of had its place. Right. Like there was the circus. There was the area, the auditorium where they sang "Never Enough." There was the house. I mean, there was just like a couple different sets. That's all it was.
Right. Yeah. No. So it's to me, it's just fascinating what the musical has become, and Hollywood hasn't abandoned it. They just don't quite know what to do with it. I guess. Yeah. So it's going to be very interesting to see how how West Side Story plays out. You also had movies like Into the Woods, which didn't do
that wasn't
really,
that great.
No. I mean, some of the movies just don't. I don't know if it's direction, but then you have a movie. Go back to Grease, but Grease had a great soundtrack too. Yeah. Again, when you talk about feeding into and cross pollination of media, like you had Grease the movie, Grease the play, Grease the movie, Grease the album, and it sold tons, and it made stars out of John Travolta and Olivia Newton-John. But we don't have necessarily that today. This year, what are we getting? 3 big new musicals. We had In the Heights, which I also enjoyed. Dear Evan Hansen, different, enjoyed, and now I'm looking forward to West Side Story. But,
I mean, you also have the one that's on Amazon today, which I have to watch.
What's that?
And it just goes to show you how bad the marketing was. Is everybody's talking about Jamie?
I didn't know that was a musical.
Yeah, it's a musical. Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's so many things that are coming out. I mean, and then oh God, I'm not going to mispronounce it. The movie I was talking about 2 weeks ago with Peter Dinklage is also a musical.
Oh, that's a musical. Oh, Cyrano.
Yeah, Cyrano. Yep.
Yeah.
That is also a musical. So there's a lot of musicals. And I'm wondering if any of them will do well. I really am. I don't foresee it. If I had to make a prediction, I would say all of them are not going to do well.
Really? But like I said, Hollywood hasn't given up on them. They've given up on other genres. I don't know why they stick to musicals. They've more or less given up on the Western.
Oh, they definitely given up on the Western.
And that has proven that it had longevity and that it did well in box office. But for some reason, they stick to the musical. So, anyways, we'll see what happens.
It's because because I think what happens is there's always so many highs and lows for them, right? Like you said, like you had The Greatest Showman, and like people are like, oh, wait a second. I mean, Les Mis did all right. Les Mis did all right, and then they had a great cast, and they had at that time they got some great actors in it.
Yep.
Mamma Mia did very well.
Oh yeah, I forgot about. Oh, how can I forget? I wanted to forget about Mamma Mia, but yes, it did. It was huge.
I mean, come on. They made a sequel off of it.
I know.
They're actually talking about doing a third one because the sequel even did well. So there you go. I mean, you don't know. But, I mean, the problem is that I think it depends on how accessible the stories are to people.
Right.
And the themes that they express because – movie critics are a little bit more picky than theater critics.
Do you think so?
I do, because I think they're more trained. The problem we can't talk about this today, but the problem with film critics is that film critics have we've talked about this, unfortunately, is that, and I'm not saying that there's not some great ones out there, and some of the new ones are not great, and people of color are not great who are film critics, but the problem is that we've adopted this mentality that pretty much anyone can become a film critic. It's been a thing that has happened over the past 5 to 10 years. And again, some people wow me and like really surprise me, and I've never heard of them. And then other people, I'm kind of like, oh God, you should not be doing this. Right. But theater, I feel like it's still like the same couple of names who do. So they kind of know what to expect. They've seen enough shows that they kind of like, you don't see here. Oh, there's a brand new theater critic. It doesn't happen that often.
That's true.
So I think they just know, they have expectations. They know what to expect. So when they see something like Hamilton, they go, whoa. Yeah. When they see producers, they go, whoa. And then when they see everything else, they say, this is good. Don't know if it's going to run that long. That's good.
I'm waiting for Beetlejuice the musical on screens.
No, it's going to happen. They're bringing it back to Broadway, so it's definitely going to happen.
You think they'll make a movie?
Brothers not working on it. Yeah, it's coming back in.
No, I heard it's coming back.
Did you hear the reason why? That they shut it down. So it was at the Winter Garden Theater, and they had locked in a contract with Music Man, with Hugh Jackman and Hunter.
Oh yeah.
They were basically locked into that contract.
Right.
So they didn't expect. I guess they already wrote it like they weren't expecting Beetlejuice to do well, and it surpassed expectations. But they were still going to push it off and cancel it, and then because of the pandemic, because so many other shows folded. Right. They just switched theaters. And so it is coming back, and it's going to be in a different theater.
Beetlejuice. And on that note,
we're going out because it's been an hour and 45 minutes.
Wow, what a show. But we talked a ton today. All of it trending in Hollywood. I think no other shows is going to take deep dives into musicals the way we just did over Evan Hansen of all things, and I think it's worthy of discussion. Don't you? I mean, I do. I think it was a great discussion.
I think hearing that kind of conversation about this is the most conversation that probably anyone's ever going to give it.
Anyone is going to give it. You're absolutely right. So
yeah. So good talking to you as always. Have a good weekend.
You, sir.
I will see you. I will text you in a little bit. Have a good one.
I'll talk to you later. Bye.
All right, bye.